On Saturday, you come to town, and that was always a big treat because you might get a knee-high soda or a Milky Way candy bar. And that back then, that was a treat. Believe you me, it was a treat. On Sundays, if you played baseball, as kids, you just played with grown-ups, whoever, and a lot of grown-ups would just get out in pasture and play ball and things, you know. But then we used to do things like go chickpea hunting, you know, and there's not too many chickpea trees around anymore, you know. But there wasn't a whole lot to do when you was a kid growing up, you know. I can remember when I was 6, 7 years old, we'd take the metal rim off the hub of a wagon and take a tobacco can, flatten it down and bend it, and then we put it on a stick and we'd roll that thing down the road, you know. Or we'd get old tires and roll them. I've rolled old tires for 100 miles, you know, see if you could roll them through a creek or up a certain hill, you know, or talk my sister into getting into it and let me roll her down the road, you know. But
my first 8 years of education was at the Illinois Chapel School, which was a one-room schoolhouse. And, you know, we didn't have, if we played ball, it was with a board and a tennis ball or something, or we played a little game called ante-over, throw the ball over the building and stuff like that. But we didn't have a lot of, we didn't have a lot of organized activities like they have today.
The kids back then, we had a theater here in town, and that was about the only form of recreation we had other than, we didn't have organized sports. We'd play sandlot football and sandlot baseball and just something that we'd get together and do. We didn't have anybody, a coach or anything to direct us. It was just not a whole lot to do back then.
I made most of my own toys. If I wanted to play with cars or something, I made my own. Mom did a lot of sewing, and I'd take the spools, the empty spools that the thread came on, to make the wheels with. And we made our own cars, but we made roads that mainly in the road ditch.
We swiped eggs at my mother's hen house and made mud pies, which we got into a lot of trouble over, and went swimming, horseback riding, things like that.
Well, it was most generally on Sunday afternoon, and those of us that had bicycles, we rode our bicycles. The people had horses, they rode their horses, and we just did the area out there, and we'd meet over at the church.
Well, when we were young, we'd go to what we called a party that was called swinging games. And it was just like square dancing. And that was after we got to be old enough that we could go to parties.
We used to go to dances. Maybe when I put that on there. And yeah, and play parties. Back then they had them. And there were several kids over there, and we all got together. But we'd go to the movie on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon.
It was rare. I remember my dad took me to Prairie Grove to see the movies, and we seen the Yearling. And then I can remember him taking me up here to see the movie Shane, which I've still got a copy of today. You know, it's a great movie, but they didn't do a lot of things other than just work and try to make a living, you know.
I remember we went to the show every Saturday night for 10 cents.
We'd walk down to Harlan's, Five and Dime, and there was a woman that worked there, and she would, especially if you were a kid, she'd watch you like a hawk. You'd go down the candy aisle and she'd be there staring at you.
ride our bikes. Like I said, you could go anywhere and just be together. You would go to someone's house. Our house seemed to be a place that most of our friends would come and hang out and visit. And it wasn't a time of everybody sitting on the couch playing with their phone. You visited, you talked, you had fun.
They played outside. They climbed trees, they rode bicycles, they played at each other's houses. That's what they did.
I remember going to the library, getting to ride your bicycle to the library. We just played around. Either I'd go to a friend's house or they would come here, and we played outside. And I know, since I was the only child, I really didn't have anybody, and I remember the neighbors across the street, their great-grandsons would come and spend the summer with them, and I played with them all summer long. We would play outside until dark, get up, early and play till dark. Catch lightning bugs, spray water on each other, go out on the field and picnic. And I remember playing by myself for hours, just throwing the softball against the house or over the house, and then we would go, after I got older, we would go down to Carmen's drugstore or Sterling. Sterling was there then, and get a Coke because they had the fountain and everything. We'd hang out down there.
We'd go to each other's house and spend the night, and then we'd all have to get up the next morning and go milk cows and do whatever, and but I had lots of friends.
I guess one of our biggest pastimes at nighttime when I was a teenager, we didn't have any place to go and nothing to go in anyway, so we'd just meet down on Main Street. And in front of the mock clinic, there was a curb that you could sit on. And there'd be anywhere from 5 to a dozen of us boys would sit down there and spit and whittle, I guess. And, just, that was our nighttime entertainment. And they'd leave the clinic building open, especially in the winter, so that you could go in and warm up. And the policeman, the night watchman, could go in and warm up. Now, can you imagine doing that today? Leaving a clinic building open all night?
We played fox and hounds, what we called fox and hounds, a lot at night. We would meet in downtown Prairie Grove and kind of choose up, and there would be 4 or 5, depending on how many kids showed up. Be 4 or 5 kids, and we would give them a 1-block head start, and then you would basically run through backyards and all over town trying to stay away from the other people that would try to find you. And there would be 10 or 15 kids trying to find 5, and so people of the town weren't too alarmed whenever you'd run through somebody's backyard and duck under their clothesline, maybe knock some clothes off the lines and stuff. We never did hear a lot of stuff about it.
We just had a lot of fun swimming. Basically, it in the creeks. That was back when you just didn't have a bathing suit. You just stripped down with the boys and walk up. One time we walked up on a hole and there was a family in there, women and all. And we had to get out and take off. And we left our clothes wheeling up the creek. So
they fished, and we had ponds, and they fished, and they went swimming in the summertime, and just like all the other kids did, I guess, visited back and forth.
Well, during the daytime, a lot of times, you have to remember that baseball was a large portion of our games, we'd say. So we on the north side, behind the telephone company, and the north side of the street was an open field. And we would go to the hardware stores and buy broom handles and a cork, fishing cork that was about probably 2 inches in diameter, and we played cork ball with that. So you had to hit that ball, and a cork ball that was coming at you, and being that it was light, you could make it do a lot of different things. I mean, you could make it rise and float. You could make it curve, you know, left or right, depending on which way you had it. But because of that, and because of being able to play corkball, you didn't have to have gloves. You didn't have to have a lot of extra stuff, but it allowed us to have a very good hand-eye coordination. And so when we actually got to the baseball field and was playing baseball, it allowed us to be pretty good baseball players.